It's 8:31. My special guest, as I've been promoting this morning, is former Sheriff of Rutherford, Dan Good. He's in the studio with me this morning to talk about a forthcoming book called The Good Sheriff. Dan Good, good morning. Welcome to the Blue Room.
Good morning to you, my friend Jim.
You know, clarity, Dan Good and I have been friends a long, long time, and he is coming up with another book, I think maybe first of the year. Is that about right? First of the year?
It's supposed to come out around January 1, thereabouts.
We'll talk with Dan about that book. It's called The Good Sheriff. Of course, that's a play on your name.
Play on my name, absolutely, my last name.
Sandy Huddleston Edwards is the composer. She's worked with Dan in a previous book. What's the title of that first book, Dan?
Well, it wasn't my book, it was hers, but it was called 3 Day Nights. Yeah. And it was about the when the 3 officers got killed up in Union Mills there. Yeah. The worst thing that ever happened, I suppose, in this county.
You were a big part of that night. You were.
I was there.
Yeah, a big part of that night. Well, this book is, of course, a different story. This is sort of like the biography of Dan Good's life. He goes back a long, long ways. What did Sandra think that would be a good story?
Well, we all have a story to tell in life, and this one's mine. I had several people. It wasn't just Sandy that wanted me to tell my story. Years ago, even before I decided to retire from law enforcement, and so about 5 years ago, I said, I'm going to do it. So it's taken me about 2 years, actually, with Sandy's help. She's a professor in English, I think. Yeah. So we've done it together.
It goes back to your earlier days, even as a child growing up. Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Well, I was raised up there in the mountains with not a gold spoon with me, so to speak. We had some poor times, but my mom and daddy were good people. They, in fact, my mama read the Bible to us every night, and I'm still proud of that. I think that gave me my start in life, which taught me to have confidence and to have faith in Almighty God.
Faith has been a big part of your life, and the book indicates that. The stories, the chapters each begin even with a verse of scripture that obviously were important to you. The fact that I liked about I've only read earlier copies of it. I've not seen the book yet either, but I've read earlier copies of it, preliminary copies, and it's such an amazing book in that it grabs your attention from the time you grew up and you're going into Vietnam, and those the thing that stood out with me, chapter about you being shot down on a helicopter. Talk about that.
That's right. It was in 1968. I was in the Marine Corps, and we were on a mission over there to check enemy movement, and the intelligence said, "Nah, you guys don't have anything to worry about today. Nothing out there." You know how intelligence goes. So when we got where we were supposed to be, there was apparently about a company of North Vietnamese, and they shot the plane down, in so many words. And both the pilot and the co-pilot were killed automatically, instantly. And then 3 other Marines out of 11, and we really thought that they were going to overrun us. But we called in some jets, and if it hadn't been for their accuracy, I wouldn't be here today.
Those are some chilling times for you, as well as a lot of Vietnam veterans who came out of there. Now, another thing I like about the book is that you don't hold back anything. I mean, you were open and honest about the things that occurred in your life that was devastating for you, as well as encouraging for you. And the story you talk about your daughters.
Yeah, I've gone through a lot in my life, as we all have. But without doubt was the fact that I lost both of my daughters, and that's all the children I had. So you can effectively say that I lost all my children, and I write a lot about that, Jim, and purposely. That's a big part of the book, and it tells how you can get so down in grief and depressed and in a hole, a deep abyss, and you finally learn how to come out of it, and it's not the way you would think. It's the way that you start asking questions, but when you finally talk to God about it, it turns out a different way.
Was it therapeutic for you to write this story?
Oh, absolutely, without question. And I hope it helps others.
One thing, Dan, I think it will be helpful, for particularly for those folks who were in Vietnam and still suffering through this depression. You were there, you pulled out of it, and maybe this story that you're telling can help those folks who are still suffering from that a mental condition of what's happened in Vietnam. Maybe it'll help them pull through it.
Well, PTSD, it is not just from Vietnam, and it's not just from war. Lots of things in this crazy world especially can cause PTSD. But I like to go to the Veterans Hospital, which I do on a regularly basis, and I usually work one-on-one because getting people to talk about it, whether they're here, were in Vietnam or in the Middle East, PTSD is something that can eat you alive, and there are a terrible number of people, veterans, who are committing suicide, even as we speak, because of it.
What prevailed you to, first of all, get into law enforcement?
Man, I tell you, I was, as I grew up, for some reason, I wanted to be a state trooper. I mean, it's almost like I had planned my life. I wanted to go in the service. Both of my brothers, by the way, had been in the Marine Corps. Saw no heavy stuff. They left it off with their little brother. But I always wanted to be a state trooper, and the good Lord let me be a Marine. Of course, I didn't necessarily want to go through all I did in the Marine Corps, but I did. And then I got to be a state trooper, and there are stories by the way, Jim, about being a state trooper that you'll enjoy. They're funny stories. They're page turners.
Yeah, I remember reading one one of them about the stuff you made with was it the pig or the hog?
I was patrolling up there around the Tennessee line one night, and I stopped at an old model car that had two big Holstein calves in the back of it. And long story short, that situation made the Paul Harvey News.
Yeah.
We do you recall that?
I sure did.
And he picked it as one of his stories, and I've still got that little reel tape, at the side. But and there are others that you will find amusing, I think. And then there are stories about, obviously, the sheriff's department. Lots of those especially about whodunit murders. Some of those murders you're familiar with.
Yeah.
But I've got about 6 or 7 of them that are really whodunits. Just a page turner, and I think you'll like it.
Yeah. I mentioned transparency a while ago. One thing about transparency, even as the sheriff's department, you don't leave anything out when you're talking about who did it and who was in the department and who you had to let go, those kind of things, who you didn't decide not to let go. So fascinating folks who are interested in remember your days as being sheriff. What do you hope people take away from your book?
Jim, I hope that when people read my story, that it will help them in different ways. One, I hope it helps them with PTSD, for instance. I hope that it helps people who have lost children or loved ones. I hope that it helps them reading my pages and seeing what I've had to go through, losing 2 children. I hope that, and the way I handled it, which was finally, you have to go to God with it. Finally, and you should. And when we want to do it ourselves, and we just can't do it ourselves.
Was there ever a time during this time with the loss of your daughters, or in Vietnam, or those things you went through? Was there ever a time that you just wanted to give up?
Oh my, yes. 2 things. There's 2 books that really taught me, I think, why I shouldn't have quit, and I didn't quit, thank God. And one was the Bible, and the other one was the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So, had it not been for that, I'm not sure I would have made it. To be honest with you, especially the Bible.
Yeah. The idea of talking about your childhood, growing up, going into the military, and then serving as a highway patrolman, probation officer, sheriff, and all the things you've been involved with. There's a world of information there that folks from all walks of life, all vantage points, going to find interesting. There's a story there that they're going to find, and for many of them, that story's going to hit home, because nobody's been through what you've been through, but there are a lot of people who've been through similar situations that they just don't know how they got through it. But Dan Good's book, The Good Sheriff, can tell them a lot about how to handle that.
I hope so. I really do, Jim. I know very few people, that have lost all their children. And man, I'll tell you, you need help any way you can get it. And I hope that my book is one of those helpful things.
The relative between losing your 2 daughters, they were relatively close together when that happened, wasn't it?
7 years apart.
Yeah.
They were both in their 20s.
Yeah, well, that's I remember very, very clearly when those things happened. When will the book be out?
The book is scheduled to be out sometime around January the 1st, and give or take, but it's coming out in that area.
It's in its editing stages now, right?
The publisher has it, and she's on her last edit, and it's supposed to be at the printer's office later this week.
Well, can they pre-order? Is it a way to pre-order the book, or?
We're not doing that right now. But as soon as I get those addresses, we're going to have it in Barnes and Nobles. We're going to have it in Amazon, and a couple places in this county where you can get it.
I'm sure you want to do some signing of books.
You bet.
Autograph sessions.
And Daniel J. Good, the good sheriff.
That's right. Is there anything you left out you wanted to add to? You wish you'd add to the book? Do you include pretty much everything?
A couple things, but mainly I got in there what I thought people would want to read. There's a book around every corner, but if you don't have something in there that people want to read, and they're just not going to fool with it.
Yeah, well,
and I hope mine's not one of those.
Well, my earlier reading of the session that hadn't been printed yet, my earlier reading, it's one of those books that it's not a put-down book. I want to see what's happening in the next chapter. I want to see what happens next. It's that kind of book, in my earlier recollection of reading the unedited script of the book. Called The Good
That's
Sheriff.
sure what I intended it to be.
Well, I sure appreciate you being here to share this information. And Sandy does a great job writing this. She did a great job on the earlier book about your incident with the James Hutchins deal. Is that part of this book as well?
It absolutely is. In fact, it's a chapter and part of another chapter about that evening, which was the worst evening, as far as I'm concerned, that ever happened in this county.
Yes, I agree.
3 officers killed by one man.
And there are several people in the book you write about that people will know, that they'll find interesting about what you say about some of the people you worked with. So it's something that will be easy for people to read without putting down.
that's my aim, and I think that again, I think it's a page turner. I've been told by lots of people who write books, say, "Man, you might have something there, Dan."
Yeah. Well, it's called The Good Sheriff. Sandy Huddleston Edwards, Dan Good, written this book, and it's a very fascinating book, and watch for it. And we'll certainly let you know when it is out and available for you to pick up. And Dan will keep us posted on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Dan Good, author. And thanks
you.
for being with us.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll be back